Scott Perry was coming in, I started remembering some of the things that had been written about Scott Perry's first time around. And I remember, if I remember correctly, there was a lot of talk about how he was bringing credibility to the Kings that they hadn't had in a while.
Yeah.
And I was remembering the great Jason Jones was covering the Kings at the time for the Bee. So we asked him if he would join us. Here he is from The Athletic, former Kings beat writer for the Bee, Jason Jones. How are you on this fine Friday, Jason?
Doing all right. How's everybody doing?
Good, yeah. It's hard to know, as you know, from having been in the Kings spin cycle for so long. It's hard to know up from down. But I just want to ask you, first of all, in his short time with the Kings that first time around, what did Scott Perry, as you remember, bring to the Kings, and what do they need him to bring now?
I think you can almost go back even before he got there. Remember, Vlade had been in charge of basketball operations, and they were just mired in the situation where it got to the point to where they couldn't get top level guys even work out for them. I would talk to agents, those guys. Look, I'm not bringing anybody I care about to Sacramento. I mean, as a beat writer, they'd send the list out of guys they were working out. I'd be like, I'm not going up there for that. I'm like, these are all second round players. Like, these are not, this is a team with a lottery pick, and they can't get a lottery level player in the workout. So the one thing Scott brought was he was able to kind of help men, bridge that a little bit, and just give. And at that point, Vlade was a newbie as an executive, and the team around him didn't really have anyone who had been in that seat before, or close to that seat before. Ken Catanella was people remember that name. He was an assistant, but that was his first time in that role. And that's one of the things they always talk about back then was that you had a Kings front office. You go from ownership on down where everyone was new to the job. And Scott gave them someone who wasn't new to the business, who knew his way around the league, had connections, all those type of things. And that was the main thing he brought in that real brief time. It was able to kind of help bridge that gap, and it, by the time, he wasn't around by the time they drafted De'Aaron, but he was there long enough to kind of help, bridge that a little bit.
Mm. Hey, Jason, I didn't know you were going to be on the stream with us there, big fella.
Oh, he always is. Yeah.
I thought he'd be in Vegas hanging with Roman Reigns and Bianca Belair and all of them, man. I thought
that's what I thought I was going to be doing too, but hey, I was overruled. So that was the plan. Yeah, but by the time they said no, I'm like, okay, well, I could have planned PTO around this, but oh well.
I know I should be there too. Instead, we hanging with these jokers right here.
Right.
But all right, so that's Scott Perry back then. What do you think of Scott Perry right now leading the Kings?
I think it's a interesting decision, just in the fact that they can't. The announcement and everything comes so quick. You notice this didn't happen in 10 hours. There's clearly been conversations going on, and just for the optics sake, if I was in the Kings, I at least wanted to leak out that, hey, we tried to get Bob Myers, or we tried to talk to this guy. It just looks like going back to, we're going to go with someone we know, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing. But I just figured, why not, hey, even if it's a Hail Mary, Bob Myers is sitting on ESPN every other night. Give him a call. Let him tell you no. Just, at least kind of run some type of search. Mm-hmm. That's what I would, if I'm the King, that's what I would have done. Like I said, even if I knew Scott was going to be my guy, that's the guy I wanted. I just think for optics sake, it looks better when you say, hey, we tried to get this guy, we reached out to this person, and if you come to the same decision in a week or two, I don't think you lose anything. It's not like they have a top 5 pick they're going to get, they got to work on it. I don't think you lose anything by having an actual, interview process.
Jason Jones with us. I want to read something Jason wrote a while ago, which I think just underscores how little things have changed. He wrote, I'm rejuvenated entering my 10th season covering the Kings in the NBA. This is when he moved to the Athletic. Through 7 head coaches, 3 general managers, and 2 ownership groups, I've seen a lot covering the Kings. Getting to the root of how the Kings plan to change that, and if they have the players to make that happen, is what matters. He wrote that in September of 2018. He could have written it last week.
Last
right?
week, right?
Yeah. So,
up the coaches and the GMs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
A few more names.
The more things Kangs, the more they stay the same. What did you think, Jason, of how quickly things fell apart from being team one so dramatically this year?
I think, the kind of the seeds for the fall apart thing started 2 years ago. I think when they lost to the Warriors in the playoffs, there was such an elation of, hey, we made the playoffs. There were some glaring things that needed to be worked on that didn't get addressed. I mean, they gave up 50 points to Steph Curry in a game 7 at home. That's that's crazy. And it was just like, well, yeah, he got 50, but he's Steph. But it's like, no, that's not. You got to, address that with your roster. I think for 2+ years, people have talked about needing to get an athletic 4-man next to Sabonis to help with the front court defense and rebounding. That's not happened. That still hasn't happened. I think some of that's roster related. I think the moment that you kind of hem and hawed with Mike Brown over the extension, that sows doubt in maybe some of the players' mind that you really believe in Mike. And then you fire Mike, and everyone kind of knows that it's going to be Doug even before it happens. And if you look at with Doug, and I know Doug, I like Doug, but this is the second coaching staff where pretty much people figured if something happened, Doug would be the coach, even if he hadn't had any experience. So you have all that going on, and then you have the way they finished the season. They just, and then you have kind of the whole idea of Bulls West. all these things, kind of add up to what you saw the other night. And it was crazy because I think it was Tuesday, my morning, one of the editors reached out and said, hey, if the Kings get to 8, we're going to need you to maybe cover them for that first round series. And I was just half joking. I said, well, I can get blown out now because you asked me to do that.
Dang.
I just said, I'm like, you just cursed them by asking me to, and it's just, they got a lot, they got a lot of work to do now. I mean, they're kind of, the way they're constructed, it's like, what do you do with Keegan, contract wise in the very short future? Do you try to, trade a Zach LaVine, or do you try to move DeMar? I mean, they got a lot to fix, but I think this is kind of built up over just not having the urgency to improve in 2023. It was almost like it was an assumption that, we got to the 3 seed, we'll be okay now. The next progression is number 2, then number 1, and they went backwards. And then even this past offseason, I think DeRozan's a good player. I'm not exactly sure he's what the Kings needed, though. I mean, and so I just think when you add it all together, you get you get a team that goes to Washington late in the year and loses that to a team that's not trying to win. And, if we're looking at it, if Phoenix hadn't been the mess they were, the Kings might have been 11th. And what kept Phoenix out was the fact that Anthony Davis came back and made sure that Dallas didn't finish 11th. But I mean, the Kings kind of finished 9th because there were no other teams under them.
Right.
It was a very disappointing 9th place finish for them.
No, you're right. Jason Jones joining us. All right, we know all this. What's the most likely path out of this mess? Is it make a move with Domas? Is it make a move with DeMar? Look into your crystal ball. What do you see happening here?
It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're do you want to blow it up and rebuild all the way? If that's the case, the quickest path is you trade Domas. You get the most for him. But do you want to start from, do you really want to go backwards that far back? The question is with someone like DeMar is, at DeMar's age, I think DeMar has a very tradable contract, but at his age, what are you going to, get back for DeMar?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what really hurts is that in that De'Aaron trade, to me, they didn't get enough draft capital, and they didn't get young players. And that's what you needed in that deal. I mean, San Antonio had a ton of young guys, and they didn't have to give up any of them.
Right.
And, and I mean, I'm not even saying you had to get Castle. I mean, you couldn't get Keldon Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You couldn't get one of the guys. You couldn't, Vast. I mean, there were other guys on that team. And I think that's what that'll hurt them, is it the fact that you made a deal to try to win now, and the win now move got you this. And you still got to figure out if you're going to keep Doug as your coach. And then if you do keep Doug, how does he build a staff? Do these guys want to stick around?
Yeah.
And there's so much, there's just so many different layers to this. And then when you read that Monty wasn't sold on that and Vivek was, then or Vivek may be more of a Doug Christie backer. But I think we've known that he's liked Doug for years now.
Yeah.
That's not a shock.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just so many different moving parts with this. Kind of, the way it always is. It just makes the 2023 playoff run feel like an anomaly.
Yeah. Looking at the bigger playoff picture overall, Jason, how many games will it take Minnesota to eliminate the Lakers? 4, 5, or 6?
Ooh.
8.
He said 8.
Yeah, Drapes is pulling for your Lakers.
Yeah, I got the Lakers winning this one. I think people take shots at LeBron when they shouldn't, especially the whole Stephen A. Smith thing. I'm not a big Stephen A. guy, so I'll take LeBron in this series.
I think the Lakers are going to win the series. I think they're going to win the series. My obvious biases aside, I think they're going to win the series. And then the West is just, I think the series is going to be the most fun to watch might be Denver and the Clippers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got that. I think the Rockets are being vastly undersold in this series against the Warriors.
Yep.
I don't know why people act like the Rockets can't win that series. I get that they're young, but they've got some vet. It's not like Dylan Brooks is a rookie. Fred VanVleet has a championship. Right. I think where the question with Houston is that one of those guys hasn't really become a superstar yet. But they've got a great. Ime to me is one of the best coaches in the game, and those guys are going to compete. They're going to play hard, and I think they can win that series. I'm more surprised that people are not giving them a chance against the Warriors if this is like a juggernaut.
Right, that is surprising.
We just watched Harrison Barnes lead the comeback and beat them a week ago.
Yeah,
and now all of a sudden this team is unbeatable. I don't buy that.
Yeah, and the last couple of times they've played, Houston's had I don't know if they've had their way with them, but they've beaten them. Jason, thank you so much for your time, especially on a Friday. We appreciate it. Enjoy the playoffs, and we hope to talk to you soon.
No problem. Anytime.
All right, bro.
Yeah.
All right,
there you go. Yeah, I remember that about Scott Perry. When he came here, it was like nobody wanted anything to do with the Kings. And when he came here, it was like, oh, okay, you got an NBA guy now.
Really? Is that was the feeling around town?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was a feeling around the league.
Around the league.
Yeah.
Okay. Some respectability.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. And that's probably something they could use a little bit of right now as well.
Mm-hmm.
More on that when we come back also.